Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and today we're hearing from Levi Kary of Pullin' Feathers. If you haven't listened to his podcast, Pullin' Feathers, it's a great one. He actually records every Wednesday night live on Instagram, and he has some great guests, and he's an entertaining man himself. So I want to thank Levi very much for jumping on the podcast. It was a pleasure hearing his stories. He has some great ones. And I'm not going to steal any of his thunder, as usual, so why don't we go ahead and just kick this thing off and let Levi tell you his stories. All right, Levi, welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. It's I gotta say it's a little different being on the other side of the microphone, yeah, I don't know why I'm nervous. I do one of these every week myself. So
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And you've got some great guests. Well, you know what? Why don't we kick this thing just right off with introducing the folks to you and your podcast? So who are we talking to?
my name's Levi Kary. I am the host and owner or whatever you want to call it of Pullin' Feathers podcast. And yeah, I just do my thing live every Wednesday and then put the podcast available for download on all platforms. Usually the next day. Sometimes things get in the way and they don't get put out, but I'm always out on those Wednesday nights and stuff and just have a pretty free flowing podcast, and sit there and drink beers and all that stuff. So, but that's enough
Yeah.
about the podcast.
Yeah, well, it caught my attention, man. I know that we've had a similar guest, Armando from the Bow Hitch. That guy's amazing. And when he shared that link, I gave it a listen. And you've got a good thing going. Great background,
Thanks.
right? I'm looking at it right now. The listeners can't see it, but I like what you're doing, man. So keep it up. I knew that I wanted to have you on the podcast as soon as I started listening to you. So thank you very much for joining, man. I really do appreciate it. Especially like most people, I only had to ask once, and you jumped at the opportunity. So thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime I can talk hunting and especially if I can skip work and go hunting, that's
There you
it's right up my alley.
go. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your background, man. Obviously, you have a hunting podcast, but like, how long have you been
Yeah.
hunting, and where are you located? Just give us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I from Northwest Wyoming, lived here, born, raised here my whole life. Started hunting at 12 years old. That was when Dad would first let anybody go out with him, and that's the first time you're legally able to hunt up here in Wyoming and stuff. So, grew up predominantly chasing western big game, elk, mule deer, that stuff, antelope or pronghorn, I guess. But yeah, that's what I grew up doing. And then later on in life, I got into waterfowl hunting as well. And that just took me by storm. And now I'm a waterfowl guide on the side.
Okay.
I've made calls on my lathe. Yeah, when it comes to waterfowl hunting, I really love that. But recently, I've just gotten really big into archery elk hunting or archery hunting in general. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my new addiction now.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, archery elk hunting is my addiction, even though I'm not very good at it, but I'm trying really hard to be good at it. I've heard a lot of Western big game hunters say that waterfowl hunting is the dark side, and when you convert, you just don't come back. So it's funny.
It's there.
Yeah. No, I think I just told you, and the listeners on this, but I'm about to go on my first ever duck hunt. So we'll see. I'm not going with anyone. I'm going to wing it, and pun intended, right? And just try and figure out how
Right.
to put some ducks down. So I've invited some people, and they're like, "Do you have like a bird dog?" And I'm like, "And I think I'm the bird dog this trip." So we'll just I'll figure it out, man.
You're really addicted when you go get your first bird dog, man. And
Yeah.
there's nothing like watching your dog work. Like it that is awesome.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that than shoot most days. That's one reason I enjoy doing the waterfowl guiding is I get to watch my dog work and do all
Yeah.
sorts of crazy fun stuff. So
That's cool. That's super cool, man. All right. Well, you know why we're here? We're here to hear some of your favorite hunting stories. So I don't know if you have anything in particular that you want to kick us off with, but set the stage, brother. Where are you? What are you hunting? And go from there.
well, I think I'll just start off just because it was so recent. It was a few weeks ago during archery season. Up here in Northwest Wyoming chasing elk. I've worked my butt off the past year. Um, shooting my bow, went and got a new bow, all of that stuff.
What kind of
And
bow?
been I got a Matthews V3 31-inch riser, or axle to axle length and stuff. Love the bow. I
It's a great
upgraded
bow.
from
Yeah.
like this old what the heck is it? Oh, this old PSE that's from like 1982.
Older than you
Yeah,
are,
I'm looking
probably.
at it. Yeah, oh yeah, it is older than me, and stuff. So I upgraded from that. Just so much of archery is confidence, right? Uh, and I've been shooting 3 dozen arrows since I bought the bow. Really putting in the work, going to a mountain archery fest. Doing that stuff, and finally, like, it was my last day for elk hunting, but we'd been hitting the hills hard and encountering elk, and over the past couple years prior, I've been chasing this giant bull with no luck. Missed a 60-yard shot, but this year I finally my dad and I are just sitting around and we hear a bull chirp off, and okay, that was cool. That sounded legit. Let's just chill out and wait and see if it's like really a bull. And about 5 minutes later, he rips off another bugle, and Dad and I look at each other. Okay, that let's go. Let's do this. So we grab all of our crap. We go into the woods a little bit, just a little bit deeper, and I rip off a bugle, and he instantly responds. And I just, okay, Dad, it gets thick in here. I'm just gonna go in by myself. You chill out right here. And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you got it, man. You got it, man. And it was super thick timber. I was really surprised, and especially at the amount of down timber that was inside, like the mature green pines. Like it was really really surprising. And there was quite a few marshy spots and stuff like that. I remember jumping over a log and like sinking to my knees in mud and just
Ugh.
wondering where the heck that came from. But I rip off another bugle, and he almost cuts me off, and then to my right I hear another bull bugle, and I'm like, oh well, this is like a convenient problem to have, like
Yeah,
two
yeah.
elk. What do I do? I've grown up elk hunting my whole life, but never really this chasing elk during archery stuff. But I know how to elk call. I was on the radio one time when I was a little kid bugling and stuff. But anyway, so I'm sitting back thinking, and I'm like, which bull should I go after? Should I go after the one that I heard first, or should I go after the one to the right that sounds a little closer? Say, screw it, go for the one that's closer. He's here. And I start kind of charging in after him. And I start progressing on him, and things just start to not sound right, And
Oh.
I'm like, man, this sounds like another hunter, real tubey. And when they started cow calling, it just frankly sounded like shit. So I said, but I just got to rule it out, that's that, leave no question. So I get to where I'm about 50, 60 yards away from where they're calling from. And I'm looking at my phone, and I can see that there's an edge of a clearing right there. And I'm not very far away. So I kind of get low, and I can see through the bottoms of the trees, like the sunlight shining through from the meadow. And about that time, I see a guy bend down with his bugle tube and rip up, and do his bugle. And I was like, okay, well, I'm thinking that bull has been calling back and forth to both of us the whole time. So I feel as though I can make a lot more movement really fast on the real bull if if I can go silent, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I rip off a bugle um to make it sound like this bull is like pushing cows away, and I'm doing my cow calls and chirping and making it sound like this bull's pushing cows away to keep them bugling. And so then I made it, I don't know, another 100 yards away from where they were at. And I just shut up, and I just hauled balls to where the real bull was. And pretty soon I get to where I'm like, I have 75 yards from where that bull's at. And I'm like, man, I know he's here. Where the heck is he? I mean, it's thick, but it's not that thick. I'm in kind of an open ish spot.
Yeah.
And it just occurs to me like, oh, he's up above me. And I look up, and he's up on this hill that I can just barely see his legs shining through the trees and stuff. And like, okay. Sweet, he's here. Hide behind the tree, and I'm thinking to myself, he's expecting to be able to see a cow or a bull right now. Like in his head, he's thinking, where are they? So I do another one of those, like, screw it, why not? It's only cannot work, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of turn my head away, angle my bugle tube behind me, rip off a bugle, do a few cow calls, and then I do the same thing, but make my bugle quieter. And I'm trying to stay in the same spot, but make it sound like a bull is walking off. And it, Lord and behold, it works. I kept doing the loud cow calls, and he comes down the hill, glunking. I mean, hearing that glunking is awesome.
Yeah.
Bugling, And so I sat back and thought, okay, this is what you've been working for. You need to breathe. And one thing my dad's always yelled at me when I'm like, shooting at stuff, he always yells, damn it, Levi, make it happen. Because I always have a tendency to screw shots up. And so it's usually the follow-up shot that dad's
Damn it,
yelling,
Levi.
damn it, Levi, make it happen, right? So I breathe deep and I'm like, okay, just pay attention, pull your arrow out of the quiver, nice and slow, make sure your cock veins up, blah, 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 walking myself through it. I can hear the bull like pissing on himself. I am like, oh, okay, he's
Yeah.
got to be within yardage. So I like kind of peek out from behind the tree that I'm hiding behind. And he must have walked like back away from me just a little bit. And he's sitting there and I range him. He's 30 yards broadside. And I'm going, oh, yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
baby.
And he turns his head away from me and bugles. So I go, perfect, pull back my bow, settle in my 30-yard pin, squeeze, 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 squeeze. I have never felt so composed about a shot in my entire life. I swear, rifle, anything otherwise. I have never felt that calm and collected. And I just finally, like, right when that release went off, it surprised me just like it's supposed to, but it wasn't a good way to surprise me. My bow blows up in my hand.
No. Oh,
Yeah.
God.
I'm talking a 350 bull. I can send you pictures of it later from the night before I had seen him in the area.
Yeah.
But yeah, 350, 6x6, real dark, heavy horn bull,
Oh,
nice white
Levi.
ivory tips.
God.
This would have been my first ever archery elk and 350 bull, pushing it would have been really close to one of my biggest bulls I've ever shot, if not the biggest bull. Yeah. So nothing
Oh, my
much you can
God.
do, man. I just
And that's the new
I just
bow that
dropped
blew
to
up
the
on you.
ground. Brand new bow, and I've been doing some research and stuff. And well, first I took it to the bow shop, right? I'm like, what happened here? Because it's not a next string. Like, I didn't hit it with the broadhead, I knew that. So I took it to the bow shop. They're like, yeah, something's messed up here. I sent a string manufacturer, an aftermarket string manufacturer, pictures of the string and where it broke and all that stuff. And what everybody kind of comes to the consensus of, I can't remember the exact name of what they're called, but those little crimps that they put on your string for like added weight and balance and stuff, and then they put the shrink wrap over them. They must have nicked or kinked the bowstring when they put those on originally, and why it chose like that time. Gosh. After shooting it three dozen arrows every single day all summer and everything,
That's
why
brutal.
it chose that exact time, dude. Like, who knows? It's nuts. But anyway, so I'm sitting around waiting for new bowstrings for my bow. I got to just listen to that bull walk off, go up the hill, kept bugling the whole way. I basically pouted the entire way back to my dad, and my dad's going, what happened, man? What happened? Like,
damn it, Levi.
Jacked. He was all jacked thinking it happened.
Yeah.
And I just I can't lie to you. I chucked my bow.
I believe it.
Dude, I chucked that thing like, what's wrong? What's gonna screw up anymore?
Yeah.
So what if I bust off my sight, or something? But yeah, I chucked my bow when my dad's like, dude, what happened? And I chucked it, and he's like, uh-oh. So yeah. Meanwhile, the bull's still bugling and everything. So yeah, that's that story.
Man, that's brutal. That did not take a turn that I expected, Levi. That's heartbreaking, man. I'm sorry to hear that.
Hey man, it's just adding more stories to that book that I'm collecting basically for when I finally do get my first archery elk kill.
Yeah.
It was really awesome being able to get my first archery animal this year. You know, spot and stock antelope. Shot that buck at 50 yards. That was great. And so, and everybody just says is like, oh, you got the hard one out of the way first.
Yeah. I got a couple days
So,
of antelope hunting with my boat this year, and Jesus, it was hard. Give me a couple more days. I felt like I might have got there, but those
right.
guys are. I don't know the terrain you're in, but where I'm hunting in southeastern Colorado for those antelope, flat,
Uh-huh.
flat, flat, no topography, like just crawling through cactus. It was hard. It was real hard.
it I've hunted in that kind of stuff, before, doing spot and stock, but I've got a really special tag that I apply for and that I hunt antelope in, and you actually get to chase them at 10,000 feet
Oh, that's cool.
elevation up in the high mountains and stuff, but it's really wide open
Yeah.
and they know where they're at, and it's big rolling hills. So I mean, it is hard to stalk on them there, but you know, get it done, and it's a blast. It's so fun. So
That's
yeah,
cool,
that's
man.
that's a good spot.
You reminded me of a part of a story. So I've killed an elk with a muzzle loader. But in this story, when you said you just left your dad behind, my brother-in-law was with his father, and he does basically the same thing. He's like, Dad, sit here. I'm gonna drop a pin and I'll be back. And he just left his dad there in the woods. And so his dad wasn't hunting, just came along for the experience. And the funniest thing about when he left his father there was his dad, armed with just a cell phone camera, had videos of herds of elk walking by. Like if they had just sat down right there, they would have had their choice at 15 different bulls. Like he was there for 2 hours and probably saw 70 elk. It was just absolutely
Oh,
insane. So
I
I'm
wish my
curious if
dad
you're,
was with me because
yeah,
he had his crossbow, you know. So I wouldn't have shot it with the crossbow myself, but I could have, because I just don't want to do that after all the work I've put in
yeah,
with the compound. I just don't want to go there because I had so many people say, why didn't you go after him with your dad's crossbow? And that's not the way I want to do it.
yeah.
But by all means, dad, like he could
Go
have
for
done
it.
it, but he didn't even want to go in after him just because how nasty the down timber inside the timber was and stuff. But yeah, that's I don't do that very often to my dad, but in those certain situations where you just got to shit and get and make moves, that's the only time I really leave my dad. Because I mean, we hunt in thick, heavy, grizzly country. That's what we're chasing elk in, and
Yeah.
we've had a lot of run-ins with grizzly bears. I mean, this year we had one charge charge us in our Toyota 4Runner. You
No
know,
shit. Jeez.
yeah, came running right up to. He stopped about what was it, about 8 feet from the door. And we got electric windows, so you're like, come on, come on, come on, come on. Like, all we heard was this freight train just coming through the timber, and we're like, what in the? And we turn our heads, and just big old boar grizzly just hauling butt at us. And yeah, you run into the windows, and they don't go up fast enough.
Yeah, I bet, man. You actually, so the last recording I did was with Brittany Kitchen, and her and her husband hunt in North Alberta.
Uh
And
huh.
same thing, man. Like on their own property, they have grizzly bears charging them if they're within a couple hundred yards. That's some terrifying stuff. And then in Canada, you can't even have a sidearm. So they're sitting there like, how do I
Oh
even defend myself here? So you go bow hunting, you have to carry like a giant rifle with you because you can't just have a pistol. So man,
yeah,
she
geez.
bears are scary, bud.
G bears are but that's why I hunt where I do because it keeps kind of people away. You
Yeah.
know, I could go hunt another mountain range that's just on the other side of me here, and there's no grizzly bears there, but it's full of people. So I'd rather go play with the grizzly bears that might knock my block off, than go mess around with people. But I mean that does remind me of a story that I was planning on telling you. Back when I was a younger kid, I was I think I was 15. We my uncle had shot a a giant bull. He ended up scoring what was it? 402 and 5/8 or
Ooh.
something. Big eight,
Yeah.
8x9 bull,
Oh,
big bull.
wow.
And this is back when they had like a late season tag, so you got to hunt the migration and stuff like that of elk coming out of the Yellowstone Park. And anyway, it's like late November, almost maybe early December. Boo Boo's supposed to be sleeping, right? Uh, we that was the last and the best year that we had. We ended up killing 7 bulls in 3 days. Everything was 6 point or better. It
Jeez.
was
How
it
many
was
hunters?
fantastic. That was all 7 of us filled
Okay.
tags.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're back in the back country on horses and everything. And so my uncle was the second one to kill that morning. Then right after my uncle shot that bull, my dad and I hauled butt across this other ridge, seeing some other elk coming out of this drainage. We hauled butt over to another ridge. My dad and I doubled. That's where I shot my first bull. My dad and I, it was awesome. Got to sit there and count 3, 2, 1, and both of us shot. And dad was a jerk and picked the bigger bull. Not like mine's anything to complain about. I'm spoiled by shooting him, but yeah. So because the hole that my uncle's bull was in, he was like, we're like, we'll pack him out tomorrow. He'll be fine. We quartered him up and caped him out and everything, and we'll come back in the morning and pack him out. We've got other elk to pack. Um, so the entire horse ride back in the next morning, it had snowed fresh the night before. We're cutting grizzly bear tracks on the trail, and we're like, oh, great. This is a big boar. You could tell
Yeah.
just a big bear. Um, sure enough, right where our horse tracks turned down to go to my uncle's bull, his feet were in the same exact tracks from the night before. So we're going, okay, everybody get ready. Well, my father and my uncle and all the rest of my family and family friends in their their great wisdom, the only person that had
Oh, God.
a gun was my 12-year-old brother. He's he's the only one with a gun.
And what's he carrying?
It was a scoped rifle, and it was, I think, a 30-06 Ruger M77 Mark II.
Gotcha.
So, um,
Not a
yeah, we're
22, so
walking,
that's good.
not a 22. At least it's a big boy gun, right? But it's scoped, like trying to get a bear that's charging at you in a scoped rifle, like good luck.
Yeah.
So we're going down there, and pretty soon the carcass itself basically starts moving, and we're like, oh, hey bear, hey bear. The bear turns around and starts bluff charging us. My dad's best friend, he's basically my other uncle, right? He climbs this burnt tree that had no limbs. He's like up in it like 12 foot high. Like he just shimmies up it like super fast. My brother, like as Shane is his name, is running past. My brother cracks a shot off, like barely misses Shane as he's running by to go climb up the tree. And it's just like just this flash of just crazy going on, right? So we ended up pushing the bear off, and that excitement's over. But we get over to the kill site, and the bear had taken the carcass and dug up all that frozen ground and piled up on it, pissed and shit, did his thing. But one of the craziest things that I've ever seen was he took that bull's head, flipped it upside down, and sunk the horns in clear up to its thirds in
Wow.
frozen ground. Like the precision for him to flip it like that, and then also to shove it, like the strength to shove it in that frozen ground was insane. But I mean, that was one of the biggest grizzly bears that I've ever seen, was that bear there,
God.
so
How much meat did he get into? Like how much of the elk was
he
wasted?
he took it all, because
Oh, no way.
everything. I mean, he pissed and shit on everything.
Okay.
We didn't tie our stuff up like we were supposed to, but I mean, it was end of November. You're not really thinking of bears at that
Yeah.
time. You're thinking everything's fine, and there was enough snow and it had been cold enough plenty long that you're thinking we don't need to worry about bears. And so, yeah, we didn't really worry about that. And that was before the introduction of wolves too. That if that doesn't tell you how long ago it was. So, but yeah, that was back in '05 actually.
Wow, man, that's crazy. So your uncle just basically got out of there with the head.
Head
If
and
they were
cape.
able, or did he have to wait for the ground to thaw and pull that thing out in the spring?
We got it out. I don't really remember how much work it took getting it out, but I think we went to go help get another elk ready, to pack out and stuff. We just went down there because we're busting bear tracks and stuff. Let's all be together for this
Yeah.
and everything. So yeah, I remember going back out. I think we're getting more meat ready to pack out because there wasn't anything to really pack out there aside from my head.
Jeez, man, I can't even imagine. Yeah, I've no experience with grizzly bears or wolves, but that'll probably change. I talked about this in my last podcast. Wolves are coming to Colorado, so I'm sure I'll have some experiences with them some way or another.
Yeah, I'm not one of those guys that says kill them all. I'm just not. They're here. Let's just manage them.
Yeah.
That's all you can do and stuff. And they're here already. So
Yep.
that's all you can do. And that's what we need to do with the grizzly bears. They're so thick. This year I have heard about more grizzly encounters from more people than I ever have. And I listen for stuff like that. And
Yeah.
as many encounters as I kind of have, most of the time I feel as though I'm the anti bear. Like I don't have a whole lot of bear encounters myself.
Yeah.
Uh, but I said that too many times on my podcast this year, and that's where I had like 3 different bear encounters elk hunting this year. So uh,
Yeah, man. Jeez.
we'll blame it on the population just rising so much.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't think we necessarily need to just shoot every one of them, but I don't think that politics should be involved. I think it should just be biologists
Should
and
be
stuff like
science
that.
based.
Yeah,
Yeah, science based conservation. That's what it all should
absolutely,
be
man.
in my mind. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I've got more
Well,
stories if you want, dude.
yeah, man, keep them coming. I was gonna say we got off track. We don't need to talk about politics and all that stuff. So give us your next story. Well, you want to go big game? You want to go waterfowl? You tell us, bud.
I've got some okay waterfowl stories. They're just nothing near as I think cool as some of the big game stuff. I guess I'll give you one just on my dog because it was really cool experience. I guess I don't know if a lot of your listeners are waterfowl hunters or not, or people that run dogs. But if you've trained dogs or have your own hunting dogs, you'll kind of sympathize why I had my proud dad moment. Last year was my dog Sprig, named after the sprig of a pintail duck. The little feather, and we it was his first year hunting, and I took him out on my dad's birthday like we always do when we go duck hunting. Shot a goose, and he went down, but he was still alive. uh he was in a heavy current river, and there was a bunch of snags in the river that basically like put him in like a perfect little uh he was protected perfectly. I sent my dog after him, and I sent him downstream. That way he wouldn't get pushed into the logs, the log jam and stuff. He ended up, I was going to try and call him back off of that retrieve because it did look so dangerous. But about that time, he just dove underneath the logs. And I mean, he's a pup,
What
dove
kind of
underneath
dog?
the logs, black lab,
Okay.
but just a pup. He dives underneath the logs, pops up, grabs this goose that's only got a broken wing by its neck, pulls it back underneath those logs, comes back up on the other side, and just comes the entire way across the river, and I've just never been so jacked, for my dog. It
Yeah,
was just one of those cool things, like a young pup like that having the drive and seeing what he can do, and he figured it out on his own. That's something
that's
I couldn't
awesome.
teach.
That's so cool, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have my hunting buddy bought a birding dog. He has a wired-haired pointed griffin, like paid a bunch of money, good breed,
Uh-huh.
really good looking dog. And it's good to hear your stories about your dog just figuring it out because his dog's terrified of water. And he's just like, what am I going to do with this dog now? Like he paid all this money to go bird hunting, and this dog will not even put a foot in the water. So he's going to hate me telling that story. But it's good to hear that some dogs just are naturals, and unfortunately, there are some that maybe just aren't meant for it.
Right, right. Yeah, and at least he went the right way with, I mean, theoretically on breeding, sounds like he did just by paying the amount of money,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. His
breeding
dog
has a lot to
is
do
a
when you go into
spaz.
looking
Yeah,
at dogs.
yeah.
Oh,
I'm sure,
that's a
man.
wire-haired Griffon for you, man. Like
Yeah,
just they're spaz dogs, but they can be great.
yeah, yeah. He's a nice enough dog. I think that he'll try and get him into like quail and some of that more, non-water related
Or
bird
upland.
hunting. Yeah, some of that
Yeah.
upland game stuff.
And
So
that's more what he's bred for too, is more
okay,
upland stuff.
gotcha.
Yeah.
News to me. Like I said, I have no experience with any bird hunting other than turkeys. And I'll put down put down plenty of turkeys, but need to learn everything else.
I'm the opposite, man. I've only killed a handful of turkeys, but I love it. I love
Yeah,
turkey hunting, man. It's a
turkey
blast.
turkey hunting's so much fun. I don't know if I've told this story, but I'll tell it again. So this last year I killed a turkey with a 270.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was in Texas, and I have a friend who has land. It's a small sliver of land, long, very narrow. So, but there's axis deer on it. So I'm there hunting axis deer,
Oh.
and I've got my bow, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bring my rifle. Like I can't really go that far, so I can bring both with me because I'm not gonna miss an opportunity if something shows up. So I take the whole property in, and I walk up and down, and there's no real sign of access. I've got some calls, nothing's really happening. But I realize there's a fair amount of turkeys. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to put up some turkey decoys. So I throw some decoys outside of my little pop-up blind that I have there. And I'm calling, and I get some calling. Nothing really happens that morning, but I walk around again, and I have a couple other stupid encounters. It's hard to call with a slate call and your bow, as it turns out. So I made some mistakes there.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
I
I need to
never
learn
thought
how
of
to
it
use it.
that way, but it does totally make sense.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here like trying to like hold my bow under my arm, and I'm trying to use the slate call. So I need to learn how to use a mouth call. Well, but that's for another day. But I eventually go back to the blind, and I'm like, all right, this is dumb. I'm just gonna get out of here. Like I need to go do something else. So I'm wrapping up my hunt. So I just rake on the slate call, chip, 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 and the gobbler goes off. And so I just basically dive into the blind when I was about to pack up and just take off. So in there is already my rifle's in there. I get there. He pops up, range him. It's about 50 yards. So I pull back on, yeah, I pull back on my bow, and I'm like, all right, I feel confident in the shot. I've been shooting a lot. The problem is I've never really shot through a lot of brush, and there's a fair amount of grass between me and him. So I'm like, I need him to just step forward. He's not anywhere near my decoys. I'm just hoping he's just going to come right in. And so I'm full draw. It feels like 15 minutes. It's probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes, so nothing too crazy. But he never makes that move. And I have a slate call. Now I'm at full draw, so I'm not making any more calls at this point. I'm just waiting for him to make his move. Eventually, he sort of drops down behind this little ridge. I'm like, oh no, no. So I put the bow down, set it down to one side of me, pick up the slate call again, and he puffs right back up. And now he's probably like 65 yards. And I'm like, well, I was about to quit, so I might as well just do this thing with this rifle. And so we're in Texas. It's totally legal. So I pull my rifle up. I didn't even think about the zoom. I'm like times 10. So I'm like just whole turkey in my scope. I'm like, I can't make take that shot. I can't even see what I'm shooting at. So I crank it down, times 3, and boom. And I just drop him just high back. Didn't ruin any meat. And he was just gone immediately. So I never thought I'd shoot a turkey with a 270, but when the circumstances there, it's just
Right?
this is what you got to do.
Yeah, you got to get it done. Wow.
Yeah. So
270, man.
but all the meat was good. It was delicious. I packed it up, threw it into my cooler, and went on my way. Finished my hunt exactly as I was planning on doing. So
That's perfect.
yeah, I've killed
That's awesome.
turkeys with my bow, with a shotgun, with a rifle. It's just every time I go out, not every time I go out, but every season I've come home with a turkey. So it's seems to be my good luck charm because I can't seem to kill anything else.
Well, yeah, that's not bad at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish I could make it happen a little bit more often with the turkeys, but I don't know if I just hunt high pressured, birds or what, but they seem to out trick me, that's for sure.
Yeah, turkeys are a funny one. They're such a dumb animal and they outsmart you every time. Like
Oh,
how
that's
many
what
things,
drives me nuts.
yeah, they're just gonna let you know exactly where they are no matter what, and you still can't get them. It's just infuriating. But
Mhm. Oh yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
all
pisses me off
right.
every time. That's for sure.
Cool.
But
What other stories you got for us, Levi? What other big game stories stand out in your years
oh,
of hunting?
yeah, here's when you say it that way, it makes me feel old, but I know I'm not that old. I got a lot of years left, hopefully. I don't know. I guess sent you a picture of that buck that I had shot and stuff, so I can kind of tell you the story of that buck. I'm pretty sure I sent you those pictures anyway.
Well, if you,
Maybe
I'm
I'm
pretty sure.
intending Maybe I'm intending on sending it to you. I guess.
Well, send them our way, and we'll post them so that everybody can see the buck you're talking about. But yeah, tell us about it.
Well, so another late season story, right? Rifle, of course. It's a really hard tag to draw up here in Wyoming. It's like a 0.5% chance to draw this tag. And
As a
I've
resident.
been lucky enough, yeah, as a resident.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to have this tag 3 times in my life. And
Wow.
yeah. But I've never killed anything huge with it. With that tag, it was always just, a decent buck. Uh, but this year, my dad and I are we're getting ready to go hunting and stuff, and Dad's saying you just got to be really picky this year. This is probably the last time you're ever going to have the tag. It's just you're older now. Time to really be a hunter. So I go up opening day by myself, and I'm up on this big ridge and just kind of somewhat road hunting and spotting. I wasn't thinking of that I was going to really see much being opening day, and
Yeah.
you really wait for the migration to come through yet again. Um, and I get out of my pickup and I'm doing some glassing, and I just see this just huge, perfect framed, 4x4 with brow tines, just big buck, and I'm talking like his forks are deep, real deep. I ended up having cell service. I called my dad and I'm like, Dad, explaining the buck while I'm looking at him. I'm like, he's just barely outside of his ears, so that 30 inches or so. But I mean, he's really tall, nice deep forks, explaining it to him. And my dad's like, yeah, Levi, well, it's opening day and this is a really good tag. There'll be other deer, just you're fine. If I were you, I'd just hold off. All right, Dad. Thinking, geez, like this is one of the biggest bucks I've ever seen. Like, whatever, Dad. My dad was thinking I was exaggerating. I was just fired up. He thought I
Yeah.
was exaggerating about how big this buck was. So I uh ended up sneaking in to this buck and getting like within 50 yards of him. I snap a picture of him, and I didn't have enough service like to send my dad the picture. And actually, that was before my dad had a cell phone too. So this is all over like me talking to him on his like landline. So
Gotcha.
that's what it was. I couldn't send him the picture. Um, I get back that evening and I'm like, Dad, this is the buck, and you could just see his face just like sinks, and he's like, yeah, there'll be other deer, Levi. There'll be other deer. Yeah, you did the right thing, and I could totally tell he's like lying through his teeth. He's just trying to make me feel better, and he felt responsible for making me pass up on this buck, and he was a stud. Um, the rest of the season, we are just striking out. We're just seeing like little 2 points, and I'm just secretly in the back of my head, I'm pissed at my dad, freaking
Yeah.
pissed. But all I want to do is kill deer with my dad. That's what I like doing, is shooting stuff with my dad as much as I can. So I finally convinced my dad. I was like, let's go on a hike on this, the tried and true spot up above the cabin, and we'll walk this rim. And we're walking this rim, and like the 1988 fires that Yellowstone had burnt right up to the edge of our family friend Shane, like I talked about earlier in that other story. It burnt right up to the edge of his cabin and stopped. Anyway, so we're kind of behind that and up on this big peak, and we're up on this rim rock, and we're walking and glassing and hiking, and pretty soon I just see this just huge buck, and I'm dad, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's the one. We need to kill him." And so we're trying to figure out how to get on him, because he's like probably 450 yards, and that's a little further out shot than I'd like to take. So we're trying to figure out how we can sneak in on him, and pretty soon he just like hides, like he just disappears, like big old bucks will do. He just disappears on us. My heart sinks. I'm like really sad,
Yeah.
Dad's like, "Oh, it's okay, we're eating." He's like, "Let's just sit down and eat lunch." So we eat lunch, go looking around a little bit more, and don't ever find him. So we got to go back to where our horses are, and we got to water and feed them. We're driving back up the cabin road after doing that, and I just see this, as you always sit there and daydream about things like, yeah, how cool would it be? Like, there he is, he's right there,
Right in the road.
Dude, no kidding. He's raking the crap out of these aspen trees, just beating the piss out of them. And I'm like, "Dad, stop! That's him!" And Dad's like, "Oh shit, that's the buck." So we're trying to figure out what the heck to do. We end up parking the truck back at the cabin. I walk around and sneak underneath the neighbor cabin's front porch, sneak underneath his porch to try and get an angle on this buck, but he disappeared again. He went back in through those aspens the rest of the way. I'm like, this is not happening. Like he's not giving me the slip this time.
Yeah.
He's got to be trying to move up, and I can head him off because there's a big rim rock there. So I swing back around. I go just below the rim rock, and I'm hauling butt. And me and my dad are sitting there. And we can see some does starting to file out. Okay, he's going to be with those does. He's going to be in the back. Let's sit up and wait for it to come. Well, sure enough, here comes the buck. I pull up, shoot, miss. Pull up, shoot, miss. Dad, this is where Dad came in and said, "Damn it, Levi, make it happen." I'm on the last shell. This is my very last shell in my gun. Pull the trigger, hit him. He like rears up vertically and just tips over backwards and just starts kicking, and I can't see him. You just see some aspens thrashing, and I turn at my dad, and I'm not really usually a loud person when I kill an animal, but boy howdy, Dad and I were hooting and hollering. We end up getting down there and taking these pictures, and we're big tough guys, but when something happens like that, my dad's gonna kill me. My dad gives me a big old kiss on the cheek. Like, "That a boy, son." Like proud dad moment and stuff. So
there's nothing wrong with that,
I've
man.
actually
it's funny. We've been doing these stories for a while, and they've got tears, they've got kisses, they got hugs. The emotions are overwhelming at these moments, man. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about.
I actually got a picture of that happening. Like
of your dad giving you the kiss.
It's like some cheesy like high schooler like selfie looking thing, like with him and his girlfriend and one kissing him on the cheek. That's what it looks like, but it was totally candid. It wasn't planned like, "Here, Dad, do that again." No, it was totally candid, but I got it on picture, and I've actually I've got it printed off because that was a very special moment.
That's awesome.
Your dad
I'm gonna need you to send me a picture of the deer.
Kid.
and your dad
Yeah.
kissing you. I'm gonna need both of those pictures.
Right. I'll send them both, man. But he ended up gross scoring what was it? I think gross 203 and some odd
Nice.
eights. But yeah, he's quite the buck. Like one of my only shoulder mounted animal that I've got. Very proud, and to top it off, Dad was sitting there and he's like, man, I really don't like where he's at. Like, it's going to be really hard to load him in the back of the pickup. And I look over at Dad and I'm like, are you really bitching about the angle that we're going to have to throw him in the pickup because it's going to be too, like, really hard? It's like, usually we're packed in like 10 miles and we got to chop them up into little pieces to put them on the horses to get him out. I said, "You're Ted, are you really bitching about loading him up whole in the truck?" He goes, yeah, you're right. I should shut up. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
So was this the same buck that you saw opening day, or
This is the
totally different
same,
buck?
totally different buck than the opening day buck. Way different area. I actually ended up getting pictures from my banker. It's always good when you can drink whiskey with your banker.
And
My
exchange
banker
gear
actually,
picks. Yeah.
right, and he sent me pictures of this deer earlier on in the season, and he was 8 air miles, or as a crow flies, 8 miles on a different ridge from where I killed him. But it's the same exact buck that he had pictures of, but totally different deer from the opening day. This deer he's got a little bit more junk. He's not that quintessential 4x4 with brow tines that you think of. That perfect framed buck. That's what the buck on opening day was that perfect picture, perfect buck. This buck has got so much character. He's really cool. Got a big old Roman nose. He's even got a split in one of his ears. And yeah, he's just a cool old heavy horned, chocolate horned buck. And
that's cool,
yeah.
Man. That's a great story. That's a great story. I love the interaction with your dad. I'm glad that you got it too, because you guys may not still be as friendly as you are if you had you passed on that first one and you never got that second one, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was totally worth it. And that was like the first thing I told Dad once we put our hands on that buck was like, I'm so glad that this happened with you, because that was one of my biggest reservations of shooting that deer or wanting to shoot that deer on opening day was my dad wasn't there with me. I had just gotten out of being in a lot of trouble at that time, to where I had lost my hunting privileges, actually, and I had just finally got my hunting privileges back. So
Gotcha.
I was just finally dipping my toes back into hunting. It was sparked back inside of me, and all I wanted to do was hunt with my dad. I honestly could have killed a 2-point buck that year and I would have been fine. But yeah, it was a good thing, I will say, just because, I'm sure that raised some questions for some people, but it was a good thing that I did get in some trouble. That point in my life, it ended up saving my life in a way,
Well, that's good, man. Yeah, sometimes you got to get your wrist slapped to get yourself straightened out a little bit.
Oh, buddy. Yeah. We'll just say I was looking at a lot of time. Looking at 25 years of prison is what I was looking at. For just doing something stupid. I heard that a kid was going to shoot up the school, broke into his Jeep and stole his gun. So I got charged with aggravated burglary. But I was headed down a bad road at that time. I was into pills real bad and doing all sorts of different stuff and being a dumb kid. And, so it
I understand why you
saved
did
my
it.
life.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Well, I'm glad that you got on the right path. That being said, if I heard about a kid breaking into another kid's truck to take his guns away, and that kid was talking about shooting this place up, I'd be like, hell yeah, brother, take that guy's guns.
Well, yeah,
it's
the
one of
cops
those weird
didn't believe
situations.
me.
Yeah,
the cops didn't believe me. I still broke the law, and that's the way I see it. I still broke the law. I've got no qualms about it whatsoever. But yeah.
How long were you not allowed to hunt, man? Or how long did they take away those privileges?
5 years.
Okay.
So I had what they call I had what they call a 501 not a 501c3 501 deferred sentence is what it's called. So upon completion of probation, um, they would drop the felony charge and it would become a misdemeanor, and I would get all my rights back. I could vote, I could have my guns, all that stuff. And so yeah, after 5 long years of supervised probation, going in every month, if not multiple times during that month, taking a UA, all that stuff. And during that time, I met my wife. During that time, I got on the fire department here locally. I've been on that for 12 years now. It was a very good turning point in my life. And it
Yeah.
turns out that my lawyer at the time of everything going on was my fire chief, when I got on the fire department, just small town crap. But
Fire chief
yeah,
and lawyer. Okay.
and my lawyer.
Yeah, wears lots of hats.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's cool. That's cool, man. Well, I'm glad that it all worked out for you. I'm glad that you got that tag and had that moment with your dad. That's really a cool story, man. Thank you. Thanks for sharing
yeah.
that. I don't know if you want to share any more. We've been going for a while, and this has been a lot of fun. So it's up to you. If you want to keep going, I'm more than willing to keep listening, or we can save some for another day.
Let's save some for another day, man. That
Right.
way I can hopefully articulate a few more stories for you and have them done up nice and good. Maybe they can decide if it's a story or it actually happened.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, Levi, then let's do this again. Let's tell the people where they can find you. Let's tell them about your podcast. If you have anything else you want to share, maybe the business card to your fire chief lawyer friend, whatever you want to share, man.
He's actually a judge now, is the funny thing.
No way. Is he still in the fire? Is he still the fire chief?
No, he retired from the fire department, but I still
Okay.
see him up hunting all the time. And yeah, Joey, he's a great guy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so tell people about your podcast, your Instagram, whatever you want to share, man.
Yeah, so everybody can kind of check me out on mainly I run all of my stuff through Instagram. So if you've got Instagram, check that out. Pulln feathers is kind of how I spell it because I'm a weird dumb hick that way. And yeah, you can find my podcast where you can listen to this one as well as like all the other major platforms and stuff. Part of the Waypoint Network, so they really help put the podcast out onto all these different other platforms and stuff. So that's what I do and stuff. And if you guys are interested in some small water kind of duck hunts and stuff that we're kind of turned out to be famous for, get on our books because we're booked out for 2 years.
Wow.
It's YouTube made us famous thanks to a company called Dive Bomb, videoing a couple of our hunts and stuff. But real skinny, tight, small water duck hunts is what we do, and it's called 307 Foul Play Outfitters. And you can find us on mainly Instagram and Facebook and stuff, and get a hold of my buddy Kurt, and he's the guy that kind of runs all the booking and stuff. But yeah.
Awesome, man. I'll put notes to all that stuff in the show notes, so people just click on the link because you gave us a lot there. You got the Instagram, the podcast, the outfitting, all of that stuff will be in the show notes, folks. So Levi, thanks, man.
Cool.
This was fun.
Thank
this
you.
was a lot of fun. You had some unique, crazy stories, and I'm excited to have you back on here in the future and hopefully hear some more, bud.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's always nice to switch sides of the desk or sides of the microphone from time to time and, get on somebody else's stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You're welcome back anytime. So thanks again, buddy. All right, guys, that's it. A couple more stories in the book. I want to thank Levi very much for jumping on the podcast. He's a super entertaining guy, and his story about the elk where his bow blew up, that story hurt my soul. So sorry, Levi. I'm sorry that happened to you. But a lesson to everyone, make sure your equipment is set up and ready to go for the season. Now, guys, that being said, follow Levi on Instagram. That's where he actually records his podcast every Wednesday nights. It's PULL _N Feathers Podcast. His Instagram is where you're going to find him. Check him out. Enjoy what he's already put out there. And then other than that, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I really do appreciate all you guys. We're growing steadily. And so I want to ask just kindly if you could please share the podcast with more folks. We want to hear more people's stories. We want more people to hear the stories. And only you sharing the podcast can get us there. So follow us on Instagram and follow us on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, whatever it may be, and share it. That's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you very much again. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you, Levi, for jumping on and telling us your stories. Now you guys know what's next. Go out there and make some stories of your own. Thank you.